Okay, good evening, everybody. Anybody that's there yet? We are live. So if you're watching, welcome to the channel. Tonight's topic is TEFL. So we're going to look at different aspects of teaching TEFL. Improvements in your classroom, how to get a TEFL job, what documents do you need, how do you find a TEFL job, how do you get hired. Online TEFL. Where do you do it? How do you get involved with it? What do you need to get into online TEFL? So those are some of the topics that we'll be looking at this evening. If you're logged into your Gmail account, you can use the chat box down at the bottom of the screen and ask questions. So topics for tonight. How do you teach online? What do you need? And what do you need to do to get hired? Basically, you need an online connection. So you'll need a VDSL or a DSL connection. If you're in a place where you can actually get fiber optic connected, that's ideal. It's a whole lot easier, a whole lot less grief. If you don't, it works just fine on a DSL or a VDSL, ADSL line. Most online services won't accept you if you're using 4G or LTE connections due to stability issues. So if that's your only option or slower, you won't be able to get a job working online in TEFL. I'm sorry to be the bearer of that bad news, but that's just the nature of the beast. Okay, so, oops, there goes the camera. There we are, we're back again, I think. There we are, we're back again. So we're just talking about what you need to do to get busy working online as a TEFL teacher. So some of the hardware that you need to have. A basic laptop will do. Most online agencies nowadays, at least the better ones, are all using their own online platform. So you need to download the platform, install it on your laptop. It won't run on a smartphone. You'll need a VDSL connection. Typically they ask for 3 megabits or faster for your DSL connection, and that's up and download. So you'll need a decent connection. You'll need a decent headphone and a microphone. Depending on the company you work for, they may want something like a gamer's headset, fairly high-end headset. These will cost you between 400 and 1,000 pesos. They will accept some of the cheaper ones with the boom mic that comes down in front of your mouth or close to your mouth. They don't want you blocking your mouth because then the kids can't see you moving your lips. They don't know how to make the appropriate sounds when you're trying to teach them basic vowel sounds or some of the other more complex phonemes, TH and PH, and some of the others. Okay, so you'll need a headset and a microphone. If you find with your microphone that you're getting wind noise in the background from a fan or your aircon, you can get what's called a directional mic, and it looks like a little tube, and may or may not come with a ball of fur that goes on the end of it. And that you point directly at your face, and it'll only pick up what's in front of it. It won't pick up noises from the sides. And the fur ball eliminates all the wind noise across the face of the microphone. So the directional mic will actually eliminate most of the problem you get from background noise. It also eliminates a lot of the noise from outside noises. So if there's, you know, chickens crowing in the background, or you've got dogs barking or other noises from around the neighborhood, you can use a directional mic because it's only going to pick up what's in front of it. It won't pick up noises from the side. It won't pick up most of those outside extra noises. Your webcam, you can get by with a basic webcam, 640 by 480, and that's pretty old school. Logitech has had those around since the 1980s, and they're cheap. They're 200 pesos. Some places prefer that you have a little bit higher resolution camera. That's nice if you're on a high-speed internet connection. If you're only on a DSL connection, it's really difficult to use a high-definition webcam just because it slows down the system too much. Some of the other companies online are still using old style systems where you're one-on-one teaching with your student or your client using something like Skype, and it works. It's still sufficient, but the disadvantage is you have to do the planning ahead of time for your student, or you're just having a conversation with him. Most of the time they're not providing lesson plans, materials, and other things for you to use. So it's more work, but the requirements for your system are lower than if you were using, say, 51 Talk or VIP Kids or Data ABC or one of the other high-end systems. Okay, how do you find a job teaching online? Where do you go to get hired? There are basically three types of online teaching systems out there. The first one are the audio only or audio and low-end video, and they're basically just chat time. So they're paying you 150 or 200 pesos an hour. You go online and you chat. You just talk away to whoever's on the other end of the screen. And it's two-way communication, but it's just chatting. It's not real teaching. So any chat bot or chat service will pay you about the same to do the same. It's not TEFL. You're not teaching English as a foreign language. You're just chatting in English. Some of the other systems do actually provide you with the platform, the lesson plan, the material, the students. So you log into your teacher console, your student pops up at the appointed time, you teach your lesson from the lesson plan that's provided, and then you say goodbye to your student and they go on their merry happy way, and you get paid. Those usually pay a little bit better for non-native speakers, Filipinos, non-English Europeans, other Asian countries, they typically pay about 300 to 400 pesos per hour. But you're required to have a fixed schedule. You're online in your classroom. If your student's a no-show or if there's no student booked for you, you still have to be checked in and online, but you'll only get half salary while you're booked in. Okay, and for any of you who are married to foreigners who are bored out of their mind and looking to do something to make some money, instead of sitting around home all day bored out of their minds, they can go to places like Data ABC, and they'll pay for native speakers. They'll pay between $15 and $30 US per hour for legitimate teaching time based on your credentials and how good you are in front of the camera, how interactive you are with the children. When you're teaching online, especially if you're working with kids, you'll have to have some props. I mean, if you're legitimately teaching English rather than just chatting with somebody, you need some props. You need to be able to do things so that the input is comprehensible. And one of the key points about teaching English and TEFL is the idea of comprehensible input. So people understand, there goes my camera again. People understand and they learn when they understand the messages, when they can comprehend the messages. If they can't understand the message, then there's no learning going to take place. My camera's falling all over the place. I apologize for that, folks. So we need to be able to make sure that they understand the message. And to that end, especially with kids, we use props. We use different teaching tools and teaching aids to make sure that things are happening the way they should be. Get this fixed here. There we go. Okay, so we use different props. So we may have little numbers and things that we can use for counting, or colors and shapes. You could have some basic kids books that you can use if they're not supplying you with reading material as part of the online platform. You can use simple books to work with the kids for reading and learning. And we can just flip through the book and talk about the pictures and read the story and look at the words. Try and get the kids to learn how to read the words or say the words, read the sentences, read the sight words. And once they begin learning the sight words, they start learning on basic how to read. Some of the other things that come in handy are just little whiteboards, so you can use and show the words, your keywords for the lesson for the day. We can use printed pictures to show different vocabulary, so that you can use these as flashcards, or you can use them, put them together and make up a story, talk about different things. I use little clips as rewards for the students. So as we're going along and working through the lesson and they do something really good, I'll take one of the little clips and put them on the whiteboard, put them on our word board. Dropping everything here. So we take our word board and we've done really well. So that was awesome. And we'll give you a little clip. right? So here you've got a little bunny clip, and we'll collect 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 bunny clips through the course of the lesson. So we're encouraging our online students um, through all of these different things to participate in the lesson with us. Some of the other things that we can do, a lot of what we do when we're working with kids is we're interacting with them. Just leave it alone. I don't want Scotch tape. It's not going to do anything. When we're talking and working with little kids, um, hand actions and other types of interactivity. If you can play an instrument, a ukulele, a harmonica, something that you can use while you're working with the child. You know, music is an excellent means of introducing songs. And when I come back next week, I'll show you how to use music as part of an online session when you're working with kids. And you can use kids songs, whether it's music that you've downloaded offline or just little kids songs that you sing with your kids, you know, singing ABC or singing Head and Shoulders, Knees and Toes. So there's lots of things that you can do when you're working online with kids, but the key is to be interactive with them. You're always prompting them to give you some feedback. It's not just a matter of talking at them all the time. You need to try and get your kids to respond back to you. And when you first start with a child, it's very difficult. They tend to be shy and very quiet. So what we have to do is start prompting them or asking them to help you do something. You know, make an obvious mistake. A, B, C, F, G, D, I. I don't think I got that right. Can you help me with ABC? I don't know how that works. Do you know ABC? Can you help me? And get them to try and teach you. And the fastest way to demonstrate or for a child to learn is by trying to teach you something. And they learn from doing and they learn from their mistakes. So that's one of the key things is we've got to try and get output from the child. If they're just listening to you, it's like watching TV and they learn nothing. The other thing to remember is when you think about modeling for your online teaching session, think about your favorite kids show. Think about Sesame Street. And if you're not familiar with it, then go on YouTube and have a look. Just search for Sesame Street. And there's all kinds of little video clips from Sesame Street sessions. And if you see how the adults are interacting, or the puppets are interacting with the TV audience, that's what you have to do when you're dealing with children and online teaching. You've got to try and deal with them as though you were, you know, it was an online a TV audience that you're working with, and you're trying to get that TV audience to respond back to you. So that's the goal when we're doing online teaching. Okay, how to improve, let's see, number 2, how to be a better online teacher and improve your income. Income, that's why we're all doing this in the first place, is we want to be working online or working in a TEFL classroom to make money. We're trying to become more professional at what we do and make money as an online teacher. So as the teacher working online, don't take long contracts. Typically, teachers will take a 6-month contract. They'll start off with 9, 12, 15 hours a week. Um, and then your second contract, um, if you've done well and you've recruited a few students, they've came to you, they've stayed with you, they've given referrals back to the company, you'll find that in your next contract, you're going from 150 or 200 pesos an hour for your teaching time to 500 pesos an hour for your teaching time. And that's not an unreasonable amount of money. 10 US dollars an hour is pretty fair and pretty common for teachers who are renewing their contracts if they've been really good at what you do. Okay. A big part of that, and a big part of being an English teacher, is being able to communicate in English. And a lot of companies, when they look at non-native speakers or Filipino teachers, and they're saying, well, we would like to pay you more. You know, native speakers are getting $15, $20 an hour. I can only give you $5 an hour because your English isn't as good. And that's not always true. So if you are good at English, prove it. You know, take an afternoon out of your day and go into a TOEIC test center. They've got centers in Makati, Angeles, Baguio, Cebu. Sometimes they do testing. In Davao, there's always the British Council, although the IELTS is about 3 times more expensive. But get an English proficiency test. Get a TOEIC test done. You know, if you go to an employer and say, okay, I've got an 800 TOEIC score, or I've got a 900 TOEIC score, they can't arguably say that your English is not as good as a native speaker, because that's just not true. You know, and you've got the certificate, the score certificate from the English test, from the TOEIC test, from the IELTS test, that you can justify being paid more as a teacher because you've got the linguistic skills that you can use. Okay, so don't be afraid of the TOEIC test, you know, and yeah, it's 2,000 pesos to go do the test. It's not cheap, you know, but when you think about it in terms of a career move, you know, going out and doing that TOEIC test and being able to prove the proficiency in English with an externally validated exam goes a long way towards justifying a higher income as an online teacher. You want to get paid more than 150 pesos an hour? Show you're worth it. You know, show them that you can teach effectively online. Show them that you can speak effectively in English. Right? Those are all things that we need to do so that you can justify that higher salary. And if you can justify the higher salary, if you can do the online teaching, if you can show that you're good at it, if you can show that you're proficient in the use of English, then they have no option but either give you the higher salary or let you go to the next competitor. And in the online TEFL industry, there are a lot of companies. You know, in the last 6 months, maybe 8 months, I've easily seen 20 new company startups. And we're not talking little mom and pop operations with 6 kids working in China. We're talking, you know, major companies with significant investments that are working in China. And people think, well, you know, how many kids can there be in China? There's 1.3 billion people. That's 1,300 million people in China. And 25% of those people are children, right? That's more people, more children, more young children in China than there are people in the Philippines today. It's a huge market. Right? So it's a good time to get in at the ground level. It's a good time to get good at it at the ground level. Okay, so I'm going to drop the online teaching a little bit here. I'm going to run out of time pretty soon. If I don't, I just chatter on all night. So I want to move on to the next thing. Um, and if you want to look at things to, want to look at teaching TEFL, on my YouTube channel, there's a free online TEFL course. It's 25 hours of lectures. There's a downloadable workbook and a textbook in PDF format. They're about 85 megabytes to download them. So you can download the workbook, download the textbook, and you can watch the lectures on my YouTube channel. It's all free. You don't have to register. You don't have to give anybody your email address. And you can work through the different modules of the course, the different lectures. So the first one is principles of teaching. Um, and by and large, it's really boring. Um, I, I find it difficult to listen to, and it's about an hour and 40 minutes long. But some of the other, it's sort of necessary. You should sort of work your way through it eventually. But some of the other classes and courses and lectures on that video channel, things like communicative teaching methods, right? So if we're doing online, it's all about communicative teaching methods. You have to communicate with your learner. So we're trying to get that two-way interaction going. So we want to watch the video on communicative teaching methods. We want to look at warmers and content modeling. If we want them to start learning how to use some content, we want we model what we want them to learn, and then they work through the process with you, practicing and doing the word drills, maybe one or two other activities. Online classes are short. If you're in a real classroom, you've got more time. Online is typically 20 to 40 minutes. In a real classroom, you're typically there for 40 to 60 minutes with your students. So we look at communicative teaching methods. We look at warmers and modeling the language in context. So the students have something that they can listen to and something they can look at. And some of the other things that you can do is start building a YouTube channel of your own. You're not going to get a lot of money from it. You're not going to get any money from it for the first short while. But start building a repertoire. Start practicing your online teaching on a YouTube channel. Just record your video, upload it, and watch it back. See what you're doing when you're teaching. And if it's really kind of boring and not very interactive, then, reflectively looking at your own teaching practices, how can you improve? How can you do it better? So those are some of the things that you want to look at as a teacher. Some of the tools that you've got. If you're working online, you're probably working with a laptop. One of the other tools that you have is right here, your good old smartphone. Right? Don't be afraid to pull that out and use it as a tool when you're teaching. Right? So you can demonstrate, you can use the translator, you can, and then for homework, get your kids to make a video and upload it or send it to you. If they're in China, they don't have access to YouTube. So you'll have to find another way to do it. If they're short clips, 90 seconds or so, you can usually send them through an app like the Line app or WeChat or one of the others. They'll let you send videos up to about 90 seconds. Facebook will let you upload, but they don't have Facebook in China either, unfortunately. But that's another place that you can put stuff up and get friends to have a look at it and tell you what they think. So some of the things that we want to do to become a better teacher, on the theoretical side at least, are doing things like watching some of the video lectures and working through the workbook, right? And I've had friends that have done online courses, online TEFL courses, and they struggled with them. And they said, well, how do I do this lesson plan stuff? I'll take a look at the lecture on lesson planning. But basically, if for me, a lesson plan is not something that we do. I'm losing my connection. No, I'm okay. A lesson plan is not something, it's not a 10-page document that I'm preparing to submit to somebody. A lesson plan is 1 or 2 short pages of notes that helps me as the teacher. You know, so if I have my lesson plan ahead of time, and it's only taken me about 15 minutes to work it out, I have a clear objective. And my, you know, teachers who put things like the objective is to learn ABC. That's nice, but I can't look in a child's head and see if they've actually learned ABC. How do you know they've learned something? Well, for ABC, they can recite ABC. So that becomes your objective. The objective is at the end of the lesson, children can recite ABC. Okay, so it's something that's observable. I can see that that's happened. I can assess that, yes, we've done it, or no, we haven't, and we need to work on it some more in the next class. So that's my objective. I jot down briefly any materials I need to bring with me. Do I need to bring the little, you know, the little whiteboards? Do I need to bring the clips? Do I need, you know, what do I need to bring with me? Do I need my little number stamps? Do I need pictures and props for the class? Do I need a book that I'm going to use in my class? And it doesn't matter if it's online teaching or offline teaching. You know, I have my materials list so I don't forget things and get in the classroom and, I forgot the book, I forgot the whiteboard, I forgot the clip, I forgot something, right? If it's all there ahead of time, I can go down the list, tick, 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 tick. Yep, I've got everything, I'm ready to go. I can sit down and I'm ready to teach my TEFL class. Okay. If I'm, the next step is activity. You know, the first thing we want to do when we sit down with a student, we don't want to just jump straight into the lesson. You'll scare them off. They won't be interested. You'll demotivate your child, your student really quickly. So we want some kind of a warm-up activity, something to get us started on the lesson. Okay, and once we get started, you know, that warm-up activity can be a quick song. It can be, you know, a quick little game. If you're online, you could be doing something with finger puppets, a little magic trick, anything just to get their interest, to get their mind away from outside and focused on you as the teacher. Okay, they need to focus on you and you need to focus on them, right? You're focused on their learning, they're focused on you. You're the model, you're the judge. So you give the example, they practice, they fail, you correct them, they practice, they fail, you correct them, you assist them, show them how to make the sound, show them how to say the word, repeat the word, continue, continue. And when we're all ready, then we've got it. You know, so we move on to the next step. We do some sort of activity that uses that vocabulary, those words, whatever it is that we've introduced and taught and drilled. We do some activities so that they can actually use what they've learned, whether it's reading a book, singing a song, saying a poem, reciting something. We do some activity so they can practice and reinforce and have a little bit of fun using what they've learned. Then we come back and recheck what they've learned, do another short activity. Then we wrap up the session because you've probably cleaned up the better part of 25 or 30 minutes. It's time to say goodbye. So you say your goodbyes and you give the high fives and congratulations. It's like, yeah, good job, awesome. It was a really good class today. So let's move on to the next class and see where it's going from there. In the real classroom, it's similar. We wrap up the class, we say we do our quick assessment of learning, we say our goodbyes. And in my classrooms, I found that students are really good at answering questions from the lesson for the day. Students are really bad at asking questions about the lesson for the day. So one of the things that I make students do when they're leaving me is first they have to ask me a question, right? And asking a question is a linguistic form that students don't usually get to do. Most of the time, especially in an Asian context classroom, students sit, they listen to the teacher, they never talk back, and they very seldom ask questions of the teacher, right? They just listen and do and answer questions from the teacher. So as the teacher, get them to ask you a question. Remember, in EFL, we're trying to get them to use the second language. So getting them to be able to ask questions is just as important as being able to answer questions. Okay, the last thing I want to look at is the process to become an OFW TEFL teacher. So a lot of Filipinos, especially in the various Facebook groups, see all the ads for teachers. Come teach in China, come teach in Vietnam, come teach in Thailand, um, teach in Brunei, teach in other countries. So they're interested in teaching and they're wondering, how do I get one of those jobs? Well, first off, qualifications. Um, the bottom line is you need to have a bachelor's degree. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, it isn't going to happen. There is nobody going to hire you as a teacher uh, in a foreign country if you don't have a bachelor's degree. I don't care how well you speak English. Okay. The next thing that you need to have with your bachelor's degree is you need to get it authenticated. So for use abroad. And that's a process called CAV, certification, authentication, and verification. And it's done at the local CHED office, Commission on Higher Education, local CHED office. So you go down to the CHED office, you fill in the paperwork, you show your degree, your transcripts, and they give you the CAV. Once you've got the CAV for your degree, then you take the CAV, your degree, and your transcripts over to DFA and have them put a red ribbon on it, certifying it for use abroad. Now that's ready to travel. The next thing you need to get is your NBI. You need your police clearance. Uh, and it doesn't matter what purpose you put on it, as long as it's a national police clearance, it's good to go. The next thing you need to have is a passport. And it takes time to get your first passport. It's not like you just pop down to the DFA office and fill in the form and it shows up in a couple of days. It takes, it can take weeks to get an appointment and even longer for it to come in. After you've gone through the process, it still takes another 6 weeks before it's delivered to you. So, if you're applying now, you won't have it until June or July, quite possibly. So apply for your passport a little bit early in your thinking process, and it'll cost you about 1,000 pesos for a passport. The TOEIC test will cost you about 2,000 pesos. Will cost you 2,000 pesos. The CAV and red ribbon should cost about 500 pesos combined. Okay, once you've got your degree, TOR, degree with CAV, TOR, a red ribbon, you've got your TOEIC, your NBI, and your passport, you're ready to start looking for jobs. You're ready to actually get on an airplane. Okay, depending on where you're going. If you're looking at China, you have to get a visa before you fly. And that can be difficult. Most of the time, you'll have to get a tourist visa, an actual tourist visa, fly into China, get the paperwork done, then fly out to some place like Hong Kong um, to get your actual Z visa to work as a teacher. Then you go back to China with your Z visa and you get your uh, expert certificate um, and your residence permit. For Vietnam, the process is similar. You fly into Vietnam, get the job, you hop over to Cambodia or Laos, you get your visa, you come back into Vietnam on your work visa, and then you get your work permit. Uh, with Thailand, again, it's similar. You fly in as a tourist, you get the paperwork for your non-B. Now, in Thailand, if you have enough time left on your remaining period of stay, they can convert your tourist entry, your 30-day tourist entry, to an actual non-B visa without leaving the country again. If you run short of time, then you have to make a trip to usually up to Laos. Vans run twice a week from Bangkok up to Viet Thanh to the embassy in Viet Thanh, and then people will get their non-B visa there and drive back down into Bangkok and then go out to their school wherever they were from. So that's that process. Um, the reason you don't get a work visa before you leave the Philippines is under the rules with TOEA right now, you they've disallowed, they've banned direct hiring for non-professional positions. Uh, so a Filipino who gets a job, direct hire, cannot get an exit clearance from POEA to fly out of the country. You're effectively trapped. You're basically a prisoner in your own country. So you need to fly out as a tourist and then change your visa status after you're outside of the Philippines. And that usually means doing a visa run to a third country within the ASEAN bloc or over to Hong Kong. Um, let's see. You can get there are a few POEA approved agencies, and you'll have to contact POEA for the list who are permitted to dispatch Filipinos offshore as teachers. There are not very many of them, and they don't list very many jobs, and most of them only deal with um, licensed teachers. So you've got your BE Ed, your BSED, you've got your PRC, you've got a couple of years of experience, and you've got an IELTS score of about a band 8 level. And they will dispatch you to places like Brunei or Singapore to work as a teacher. And those are very, very good paying jobs, probably some of the best in the region. But they're also very difficult to get your documents to travel abroad. Um, for jobs in Thailand, basically, if you've got a bachelor's in education, um, you've got your LET card, you've got a TOEIC score over 700, and if you're here in April, you will get a job. There's no maybe. There are more jobs than there are Filipinos who have their documents ready. Um, the same is true for Vietnam, but it's later in the year. After Tet, after the Chinese New Year, there will be a jump in jobs in March. Um, then there will be another big jump in August, September, where they're looking for teachers in Vietnam. Again, if you've got a bachelor's in education, um, your police clearance, and a fairly high TOEIC score or other English proficiency score, jump on an airplane, fly in, and you should have a job within a couple weeks of landing, if not sooner. Um, Cambodia doesn't pay very well. So most people that are in Cambodia are there because they can't get a job anywhere else. Their English levels are too low, or they don't have a degree. Um, the same is true with Laos um, and Myanmar. People go there when they can't get a job anywhere else. Um, Thailand is probably the easiest place to get a job as a Filipino who wants to work abroad as a teacher. You need a bachelor's degree in anything. A TEFL certificate is not a requirement, although it's nice to have when you get thrown in a classroom and told to teach. Um, you need your TOEIC score, your English proficiency test. You need your police clearance, your passport, and enough money to fly into Thailand and support yourself for a month. Um, so that'll pretty much get you settled in Thailand. People say, well, my friend said I can get a TOEIC test done in Thailand. I don't have to do it before I leave. And that's true, but if you do your TOEIC test in Thailand, if you come over in April, as an example, the TOEIC test center has to test every Filipino who's changing jobs or just flew in without a TOEIC. And they only test 150 candidates per week. So it's pretty common for them to be 8 weeks behind in booking a seat to take your TOEIC test, right? So if you fly in April, you may not get a seat reservation until June. And that was very much the case last year. We had teachers that were flying in right after Songkran in April, and it was June, the middle of June, before they could actually get a seat and take their TOEIC test. They could not legally be hired until they had the test done. They had all the rest of their documents ready, but they didn't have a TOEIC test. They couldn't get a legal job. You know, a few of them took illegal work, which is risky to say the least. You get caught, you get arrested, you get thrown in jail, you'll get fined and then deported. And depending on how long you were here, you might get blacklisted from Thailand. Those teachers who flew in April with all of their documents, including the TOEIC, ready, were working by May 1st. No exception. You had a bachelor's degree in almost anything, a reasonably good TOEIC test score, the rest of your documents ready. You had your CAV, you had your red ribbon, you had your NBI, and you flew in. You were working within a week or two of landing in Bangkok. So having your documents ready ahead of time makes that big a difference. People who flew in and didn't have them ready and had to wait till, the middle of June before they had their documents ready, they got what was left for jobs. And those were all the jobs that nobody else wanted. They were paying 15,000 baht, no housing, no benefits, 7 days of annual vacation, and you had to pay for your own visa and work permit. Those that showed up with all of their documents in hand in April were getting 20,000 plus housing plus 4 or 6 weeks of annual vacation with full salaries. Their visa and work permits are paid for by the school, and quite often they had housing included as well. So they got lots of benefits, right? So the advantage of showing up early, mid-April, with all of your documents in hand at the end of the year makes the difference of about between 60 and 100,000 baht. That's between 90 and 150,000 pesos difference more in your pocket at the end of the year by flying in ready ahead of time. So, ignore the people that say, oh, don't worry about your TOEIC, you can get it when you get here. No, get it done ahead of time. You don't want to get stuck playing the waiting game, paying for rental accommodation, paying for the van trip back and forth to the border every 30 days to extend your tourist stay. You want to make sure you have all your documents ready ahead of time. Okay, so last question. The last thing is, Do you have any questions? I don't know if you're actually on live chat. I haven't seen anybody post any questions in the live chat, but we've got about 10 minutes left. So if you've got any questions, now's a good time to, log into your Gmail account and you can chat in the chat box. It's just right down here. If you're watching on the screen, you'll see the chat box where you can type in questions or comments if you've got anything that you would like to say. Next week on the live stream, same time, next Friday at 8 o'clock Philippine time. I'm going to use a different format. Instead of sitting here and actually talking to you, I'll probably do a demonstration of a live class. So you'll see what it looks like when you're doing a live class or when you could be doing a live class. And how you can make it a little more lively, a little more interesting, whether you're using Skype or whatever format or platform that you're using, where you can add some interactivity to it without adding a whole lot of hardware. So that's what we'll be doing next week. When we come back is we'll be showing you how to use some enhancements in your online teaching. We'll be demonstrating. And again, if you're logged in with your Gmail account, you can, down here on the right-hand side, you can go into the chat box and you can ask questions or make comments. You can also leave comments down below if you want to leave a comment or a question. I'll certainly come back and answer it. I don't know really what else to say. We're done a few minutes early here. So if there are no questions and nobody's logged in, topics that we've covered today is how to teach online, what do you need for hardware and software, and what do you need to do to get hired, how to become a better online teacher to improve your income, what documents do you need to work abroad as a TEFL teacher, what's the process of becoming an OFW TEFL teacher, and I've had no other comments come in today, so I've got nothing else that I can really ask or comment or talk about at this time. So we'll probably see, are there any comments in here? Okay, we've got no other comments. I did put some links down below. So if you're wondering about your internet speed for working online, there's a link to Speedtest down below in the comment section. You can test your online speed. Online companies will typically ask for a speed test, and they're looking for 3 megabits for your download speed, and usually between 1 and 3 megabits for your upload speed. So if you want to work online, do it there. You can also send me questions to catch me on Facebook. You can catch me down below in the comment section here. You can subscribe. I think there's a link just over here. You can subscribe to my channel. There's a lot of teacher material on my channel. There's a free TEFL course. I mentioned it earlier. There's the 25 video lectures, the workbook, the textbook. There's another playlist called Teacher Stuff, and that's full of songs and suggestions that you can use for teaching kids in your classroom, or you can, take bits and pieces of the songs and teach them online to your students. Songs about jobs and opposites and clothes and sports and transportation and all kinds of different topics. There's songs on there for all kinds of topics that you can use, the weather. Some of the other things that are teacher oriented in my channel, there's examples of working in a classroom. I haven't uploaded online working yet because I haven't got permission from the students' parents to upload those yet. And when I do, I will. Um, but there's some examples of classroom activities. And a lot of those classroom activities can be adapted for use in an online classroom. Just because you're not physically present with the child doesn't mean you can't do similar activities, especially with younger learners. You know, you can have a box and you can pull something out of the box and make kind of a show and dynamics out of it, and pull something out and show it and wave it around and ask, what is this? You know, or you can have puppets talking to each other, interacting with each other, and the puppet interacting with the child, where the child may not talk to you. Just a simple sock puppet, you know, take an old sock, put a couple of eyeballs on the top, and, you know, chat like that and make a little, you know, little bit of a mouth to it. So you can make a sock puppet. There's all kinds of little things that you can do, and we'll get into some of those next week, and we'll demonstrate some of those things that you can do with puppets and stuffed toys, stuffed animals, and other realia, other things that we can use that are real life things rather than just sitting here and talking to you as a TV broadcast, if you will. Okay, so I have not much else to say today. Come back next week, and we'll do an interactive session. We'll do live demonstrations for making your online classrooms interactive and more interesting. So next week, the focus will be interactive and online. So thank you very much for coming in and watching, and we'll see you next week. If you have questions, leave comments down below, or catch me on Facebook. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good evening. Bye for now.